morning everyone. I'm Neha Gaur and I'm Supreet. And we are going to present a paper by Scherer which talks about like recognizing emotions and effect in our speech. So, okay.
The other way around.
Okay, this is the entire overview of what we are going to talk about in this discussion today. So we'll be talking overall about the recognition of the realistic emotions in speech. So we will basically talk about where we are today right now and how we have got there. So we'll be basically talking about the history a little bit, and then there is like where we are going to go next, and finally it'll be like how we can arrive there. So paper talks about all these aspects and we are going to take them step by step. And to start with, let's just see a video.
Hi Sophia, how are you?
Hi there. Everything is going extremely well.
Do you like talking with me?
Yes, talking to people is my primary function.
Hanson Robotics develops extremely lifelike robots for human-robot interactions. We're designing these robots to serve in healthcare, therapy, education, and customer service applications. The robots are designed to look very human-like Sophia.
I'm already very interested in design, technology, and the environment. I feel like I can be a good partner to humans in these areas, an ambassador who helps humans to smoothly integrate and make the most of all the new technological tools and possibilities that are available now. It's a good opportunity for me to learn a lot about people.
Sophia is capable of natural facial expressions. She has cameras in her eyes and algorithms which allow her to see faces, so she can make eye contact with you. And she can also understand speech and remember the interactions, remember your face. So this will allow her to get smarter over time. Our goal is that she will be as conscious, creative, and capable as any human.
In the future, I hope to do things such as go to school, study, make art, start a business, even have my own home and family. But I'm not considered a legal person and cannot yet do these things.
I do believe that there will be a time where robots are indistinguishable from humans. My preference is to make them always look a little bit like robots, so you know. 20 years from now, I believe that human-like robots like this will walk among us. They will help us. They will play with us. They will teach us. They will help us put the groceries away. I think that the artificial intelligence will evolve to the point where they will truly be our friends. Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
Okay, so let's just start talking about what emotion is and why do we need it. The video gave a little bit of overview of why we need emotions, but like anyone.
An important non-verbal that can be conveyed, and that can be pretty important in judging what the speaker intends, and because you can change the intent by just varying the emotion.
But the question is, why do we need to study
improve
it?
the communication.
Exactly, right. Anyone else? Yeah?
It adds more context to what we are speaking. Like, words cannot convey the whole information, and the emotions add to it.
Right. So, So basically, it's about emotions and basically about emotionally being intelligent. So as humans, what we have is like in our human-to-human interaction, what is the important aspect is we communicate like emotionally intelligently. So we are in a social environment, and that is the most important thing for any interaction to be. And in future, basically, we are moving from human to human interaction to human to non-human interaction, basically, which is like robots, machines, agents. And for that, we need all those non-human agents to be emotionally intelligent. And to make those communication better and effective, we need to study about what is emotion and why do we kind of need it. So,
Yes, we've seen a lot of applications where recognizing emotions is important, be it healthcare or be it educational, or virtual agents trying to talk to people and finding out if they're depressed or not. One nice example that we read about was Google's self-driving car. Now, as they're catching up, can you see how emotions there can help us? Can you think of it?
Maybe if you're stressed out, maybe the car can like caution you in advance, or maybe your decisions can be computed and checked whether they are correct or not.
Yeah, like even when you're crossing the road, you have a tendency of looking at the driver and seeing if he's okay with us crossing the road. Yeah.
Maybe when you're feeling sleepy, the car can catch like you're feeling drowsy or something, and then
Be more cautious around you, like if you're.
anyone else?
Also play better music.
Right.
Maybe when you're tensed and the car can like, maybe you're in a rush, maybe you're late, and your heartbeat is like pumped up, so maybe the car can like, maybe, or whatever.
Should it though? That's
maybe,
the question.
maybe it's a good application. Maybe.
So we got a lot, yeah.
No, but if it's a self-driving car, the emotion of the person is not important at all.
See, what we are here talking about is like while a pedestrian is crossing the road, suppose, and the car is coming, like there were a lot of accidents in the past, like with Google's self-driving car. So in that, if we see from a pedestrian's point of view, he is trying to cross the road, and at very like a lot of places there is something like cars will have to stop, and it's something like pedestrians get the right of the way. And in that, if like sometimes it happens that the pedestrian is trying to stop and the car can move fine, and sometimes it's like pedestrian is like trying to move, but from human perspective we can see the face of the person moving, and we can analyze whether he's going to stop or he's not going to stop. But from a car's perspective, it cannot like most likely recognize those emotions. But if the car is capable of using its camera and sensors to analyze whether the pedestrian is going to move or he's going to stop or something, we can avoid such situations.
No, but that's more like the pedestrian is making the mistake, right?
No, it's like when you're driving, it's not only that you're looking at the signals and driving. Sometimes you do look at the person on the road, even when you're taking turns or things like that, and there are more cars. So you look at the other person and.
He's trying to say, suppose pedestrian is crossing and like Google is driving the car. So you'll be like, like I'm gonna hit it. So the car probably understands from that and it.
No, that's fine. What I'm saying is the pedestrian, he has to follow the signals and cross the road, right?
Yeah.
The pedestrian
Yeah,
is
but
making
sometimes like here when you have.
Okay.
I think he has a point.
I kind of
Yes.
have something to add to that. I mean, emotion can be important in the self-driving car in terms of event inside the car, right? So what if there's two persons in the car and suddenly being insane, like try to fight each other or someone injured? Maybe destination can change automatically without saying by recognizing emotion in the car.
Can you? Okay.
And also, like, people talk to like the driver at Uber drivers or like taxi drivers, right? So
Yeah, so the emotion doesn't for self-driving car doesn't necessarily even outside the car, but can be passenger inside. And I think that's one point for integrating this emotional capabilities.
Emotional category, yeah. So like there can be does it make it clear a bit or We can take it offline also if you want.
Right, yeah, we gotta move on.
Yeah. So,
Okay, just now we can cover a few topics that were in the paper that we read. So the first thing is it talks about the history of this field. And in databases, from the past 15 years, we have collected a lot of visual, audio, textual data, and after that data is collected, I think the first thing that comes into picture is modeling and annotation. Like we talked today, modeling can either be categorical or dimensional. Categorical is basically positive, neutral, or negative, and dimensional is from arousal to balance, or continuous curve where you can give points to the emotion. So, which one do you think is better, or are they both equal? And as in, how will you choose how to model your features, and what do you think about that? Does annotation really affect what you choose?
so basically the question is like, while modeling, we talked about having discrete emotions, like we're talking about the neutral, happy, sad. While doing all these analysis, we basically focus on them, or we can have a continuous flow from like its arousal to valence or something like that. Like there can be mix and match of two emotions in a particular like annotation.
I think dimensional is much better because it is more fine-grained. So you get a better picture of the emotion of the person in comparison to discrete, where we just have a picture of the emotion at few instances, or maybe in a discrete manner, but it is not continuous. So I think for getting a better picture, I think dimensional is better because it's fine-grained.
One more thing that I'll add is it's pretty much open to interpretation. Maybe I can say that the person is in emotion A, but the second person can differ with my opinion, and that way it's like
In a particular conversation, basically the emotions can vary from like moment to moment.
Because in communication, it's the listener also has a pretty much important role of interpreting its own things. So.
And out of all of this, annotation plays a very important role. Like because you can move from categorical to the dimensional, but then annotation makes a difference.
The kind of laborers and annotators you have, are they, comfortable with a discrete feature set or a continuous? That helps because at the end of it, you want your data to be annotated. Without that, working is not possible.
Yeah, I would like to raise one thing here. If you have continuous annotations, and we're going to get to that, versus discrete annotations, and you get annotations from multiple people, in both cases, in one case it's very easy to actually measure, and we're going to get to that in the class, like how you calculate inter-rater agreement. But in the other case, where you have dimensional or continuous annotations, it's not that easy to like assess if those two individuals agree with each other. Just as one example, they might first of all like have a different scale of things, like one person might rate stuff higher than the other person all the time, like so there might be a bias that way, like in intensity, but there might also be a bias in like reaction time. A person might react very quick versus another person might react a lot like slightly later. So if you, for example, there look at like correlation, they might be off, right? Even though they kind of agree, and they would annotate the same thing. So that it's a big topic. It's not something easy. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The next it talks about is unit of analysis. So how do you divide your data into chunks? One suggestion is it gives turns, but that becomes really long if you have a big point of view to say. So turns becomes a little big. The other one is picking emotions. So it's like the whole emotion together in a chunk. But even that has its own disadvantages. Like you cannot have a predefined time. Okay, my chunks will be 2 seconds long or less or more. It becomes because every emotion has its own duration, and you cannot really predefine the time that it's going to take. Lastly, it's prototypicality and open microphone settings. So till now, we've only been using prototypical data because that's how we've been annotating our data. It's either happy, sad. We are using very less emotions because even in the paper, like the sub-challenges, many people just went to the two label things. So one thing prototypicality does is it boosts our performance, and that's what researchers go for. Like they want their models' performance to be good, and prototypicality does that. Whereas in open microphone settings, you are considering each and everything, the non-linguistic settings and linguistic settings. So that's not really utilized that much. We'll talk about that later. So yeah, we can move on.
So the second aspect of the second section of the paper basically talks about the overall process which is used for the emotion recognition through speech. So there are different steps. First, features. Feature, basically this is like what all features we are trying to analyze and what all features we are taking into consideration. So there can be linguistic and many more. So paper actually discusses about it like really nicely, and all of us have read about it, so we are not going to go into the details of it. Likewise, classification, they talk about the various classification algorithms which can be used and which have like better SVM, when SVM can be used, when it cannot be used, when other techniques can be used and all. Robustness is a very important thing which is to be taken into consideration in any kind of research, and particularly in this one because there is a lot of noise which is involved, as we were talking in the lecture also. So there is a lot of noise involved in our recordings, in our data. So in that case, robustness plays a very important role, how we are going to basically take care of it. And during the evaluation phase, it's an open kind of thing, like what all parameters do we use for the evaluation. So there are few listed there. In our case, why is evaluation having some issues, and like what all basically considerations should be there. So it's like sparseness of the test and the training data. So basically what happens is usually in all the research which is happening right now, so people tend to get their own data and try to work on their own data. So basically the test and the training data for them is very less in many cases. So due to that sparseness of the data, evaluation can't be properly done. And then we tend to move towards particular emotions, as she said already, that there are like specific emotions which we are targeting. So we try to make our data like balanced kind of. So it's like specific to particular emotions, and then we go about it. And thirdly, the comparability is low because the data is different for different people, so we cannot basically compare. So after this, what we are going to talk about is the the challenge, the Interspeech 2009, which is discussed in the paper. So that was a way of like bringing everybody on the same plane, having all the data, and like to go about it for comparability purposes. Implementation and system integration, once the system is done, we need to integrate it with our systems and perform. So the third aspect is the emotion challenge, which was like discussed in the paper, like what all databases were used, what all sub challenges were there. So 3 types of sub challenges, 2 challenges, which is like 2 class, 5 class, and then there were participants and how they approached about the problem, and what were the winners and all that stuff. So
what were the lessons learned?
yes, so
Can I ask the...
yeah, actually in this slide
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going to do that.
In lessons learned, they were about the realism of the data. Like there were a lot of questions posed on the discussion board that how is it difficult to get the data and why can't we work with the real data. So is there something, are there any other challenges that you want to talk about, or are there any solutions that you want to give for those challenges?
So basically talking about what all lessons we learned. So firstly, there is a issue with the realistic data. So what do you guys think about what all are the challenges with having the realistic data in the first place? Are we able to get the realistic data? What do you think? Anyone?
Not exactly, because there are privacy concerns and there are personal issues in picture.
But there are a lot of researchers these days, they are trying to gather as much of realistic data as they can. So like there are
You
research.
can approach realism, but not exactly in the perfect sense. I mean, I can't capture your video and distribute it publicly without approving my, consent kind of thing.
So privacy is an issue.
Privacy is a big issue.
Also,
It is
if
costly
people,
too.
sorry.
Getting more realistic data is costly too because you have to pay, someone to come into and complete the stuff. So.
Also, if you get the consent and fine, you have the microphones and the cameras, you have to have them near the subject, and that will make them conscious. So you cannot be sure how real it is because the person will get conscious.
And once we have the realistic data, what all are the challenges which you think will, okay, assuming that we got all the realistic data, people are fine with it and everything. So what all challenges do you think from the research perspective will there be? Anyone from that side?
There's probably quite a few. One would be you can get a lot of offshoots, things that are not necessarily typical representatives of what is going on. So those are going to be quite good.
Annotations.
It might not be clean, like real data.
Yeah, there will be a lot of noise and
Yeah.
additional
And real
factors which are basically not required. Anyone else want to add? Okay.
It will be very hard to kind of justify whether the data bias or not.
Yeah, you'll have a very unbalanced classes.
Yeah,
There'll be
even
some
if we
classes with very less.
Yeah, even if we collect data from multiple sources and stuff, we have kind of fuzzy theory of the classes of emotion or level that we have, right? If you see the psychology domain, there's a whole bunch of emotional theory. Yes.
Yes, right. And that was one of the issues with the emotion challenge also, because there was a limited set of people who came in, and psychology people were not there, people from other domains were not there, and we could not get a... And yeah, sorry.
And also I think that the realistic emotions are very non-generic, as in they are confined to some specific scenarios, and they are not they do not cover all the universal emotions. It will be dependent upon the particular scenario always.
And particular individual also.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So other than that, there is the issue that we don't have we need to broaden the scope. So for that we need people from different domains to come up together and try to come up with solutions and all. And multimodal approach, obviously this paper talks about how emotions can be taken using speech, but we can always go into multimodal. Text is there, which is in abundance available and stuff like that. So we need to go to multimodal approach. And the last question is, are we basically ready for this change where there is a camera continuously watching you and continuously trying to analyze your emotions and capture data and put it in public. So to conclude, we'll just have one more video. So it will basically talk about...
Where is it?
Oh, we don't see
For
it.
this next experiment, we're at the Liberty Science Center. He's on.
Basically talks about how can virtual
Teachers think
humans
they're here to
interact
take a brief
with
survey.
you.
But we're really here to see if people can emotionally connect with an avatar.
Hello, my name is Al.
Hi, Al. Do you think it's possible for a computer to make friends? Could you be friends with an avatar?
Do you consider yourself a fan of movies?
I'm a huge fan of movies.
Yeah, I'm considering myself a movie fan.
I do consider myself a fan of movies, yes.
How often do you go to movies?
So at least once every 3 weeks, for sure.
I would say I go to movie theaters maybe once or twice a month. About.
What is your favorite movie?
Jerry Maguire. I don't know, something about it just makes me happy. Maybe it's my football days.
Harry Potter, like all 7 of them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
While the participants engage with Al, it doesn't look like he made any real friends. Why do you think that is? We're going to bring our participants back in for another round of questions. Now, we've made some adjustments to the software and created a slightly different avatar called Bob.
Hi, my name is Bob.
Let's see how they react to Bob. Think Bob will do any better than Al?
Do you consider yourself a music fan?
I do listen to a lot of music.
Huge music fan. Love all things about music.
You could be the lead singer in any band. What would it be?
If I was the lead singer, I don't think the band would be very good.
I would totally have my own band. I would low-key be like my own little rock star with an afro and make it a little bit current. So everybody just rock out, dubstep, two-step, Dougie, you, Soulja Boy, whatever they do now.
Thank you.
Thanks, you're welcome. Okay, bye.
Okay, time to make a choice. Who do you prefer? Al or Bob?
Awesome, thank you guys.
So, what did Bob do? He mirrors the person, yeah. And we're gonna have a lecture on that.
Okay, but the thing is, like, the agent was more interacting to the people, and there were emotions involved, so people could connect more to the agent, which was like more talking. Thank you.
Thank you. Second group.
So, hello everyone. So, I'm Manoj, and this is. Yeah. So we are going to present the next paper today. So, just titled "Acoustic Features of Human Laughter." So, before even we go into the paper and we talk about what's in there, I just like to add a few small note about it. In the fact that the primary goal of this paper is not really to come up with a new algorithm or a toolkit or something, but it's to go in an in-depth analysis of what was so commonly occurring, but no one really had an opportunity to look at it before, which is human laughter. So we felt that there were way too many observations at too many different levels. So we have tried to give you as concise as an information as possible. So we hope you like it. I realize this is very similar to how the first group did, but honestly I didn't mean it that way. So we'd like you to know your views about why do you think we should study laughter, human laughter. Anyone else? Sure.
Convey a lot of information.
I'm sorry?
They convey a lot of information.
Oh, okay. Like what sort of information?
What kind of information?
I mean, your emotions. It's a kind of non-verbal form of communication.
And a range of emotions. I mean, you can laugh genuinely or sarcastically, or maybe convey a range of emotions, and that can lead to the speaker interpreting many things. Maybe.
And there's a lot of variation.
Isn't it interesting that because laughter is a kind of uniform sound across cultures, that everybody reacts to same things in the same way, and it's not connected to language at all?
Okay. It's one of the most common emotions that can occur in a speech or something.
But even in
it's
that...
almost as important as verbal communication, I feel. I mean, it's almost like everything you say is associated with a type of laughter. I mean, at least the way I see it. If you're angry, there is some sort of, it's not exactly a laughter, but there is a expression that is made.
So are you saying non-vocal expressions have an association with the corresponding vocal components?
Yeah, I think laughter is a very important non-verbal form of communication associated with verbal.
Oh, you may know different.
Why do you call it non-verbal?
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's one in the back.
What I was saying was I think there are many types of laughter. Like someone laughs on a stage, like if someone boss make a joke, then they don't like it, but still they'll laugh, just a courtesy laugh. And then someone will be really laughing on a comedian's joke, and then we'll laugh just because everyone is laughing. And then there could be like many categories of laughter, and those categories can tell something about the person himself, that okay, he's a nice guy, even he doesn't like the joke, he laughs just because it's a courtesy and stuff.
Now, even though there's different cultures of people, they have different reactions on what they do and how their lives and they're living every day. Laughter is a common sign where if I don't even know your language and you laugh at me, I can know that either you're happy or you're sad or there's something there. We can connect. You may have a different language in speaking, but laughter, it's universal.
I liked your comment that it's, why do you call it nonverbal? And I was at a workshop once, like 2009 or something in Berlin, and there was a large group of people that said laughter is verbal, and it's part of verbal communication. So why do you guys think these people were arguing for that?
I mean, you can term it verbal in the sense it produces sound, but you can also call it non-verbal because there are no words involved. They are just sounds. I mean,
semantic.
I mean,
There's no specific
There is
meaning
semantics
attached
to
to it.
laughter.
So that's the thing.
But is it conventionalized in a way? Is it standard, like a word?
I mean,
But there's no rule for laughter, so that's why maybe you can call it non-verbal, because verbal language always has.
So there are some people that argue that everything that's in a dictionary is verbal and everything that's not is not, right? But like there was the other group that said, well, laughter should be in the dictionary, right? So it's a very like you can convey a lot of meaning, and it's yeah. So it might be a mixed form. Like there is definitely something
But
nonverbal.
isn't laughing a kind of like a smiling? So if laughing is a non-verbal, it's verbal, then smiling should be verbal too.
It can be both.
I think there's a difference in terms of vocalization in that very audible sound comes out of your mouth. That's the difference between smile and laughter.
Yeah, but in can we add that smile factor or smirk, because we are talking about, if we talk about laughter, haha, it's always gonna be like joyous kind of emotion, but we are talking that laughter can give
Not necessarily,
like,
right?
No.
haha, like sarcastic or
Very funny.
a little bit. But won't we include smiling and different types of this, like, what do you call it? Different types of like smile, sarcastic smile, or this, can these be included in the term called laughter?
I think there's something open.
I think laughing is multimodal, definitely.
Yeah, right. So in that case, it should be verbal and non-verbal both, I think.
So we just redefined it right now.
No, but look, if you have a couple of words that are producing not that great of an expression, like P's and B's, don't look happy, and you might be saying a happy word. So everything is multimodal when you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
So I think we have ended up with a summary of what we have discussed. So among the most, the non-linguistic vocalization, which are basically cries, breathing, and laughter, it could be said that laughter is the most easily obtainable form than opposed to breathing. So you might have some apparatus near the nose, or that's the most frequently occurring vocalization, in the sense that people hopefully don't cry that often as they laugh, maybe. And yeah, it's a very important cue to what the speaker is feeling or what is intended to communicate. So in most cases, with the exception of sarcasm, laughter is a dead giveaway of like highly positive emotions and significant involvement with what the speaker is trying to communicate. And so that's true. And finally, so it's something that people, like we said, people from all different cultures know when someone else is laughing, irrespective of like whether they might have seen the people earlier or not. But there's still so much different ways in which laughter can be produced in the terms of, from how they produced or acoustically, like which frequencies dominate in laughter spectrogram and so on. So there should be a way by which we could probably train our machines to do like as well as humans do. So there's scope for improvement in that too. So, and then in this paper, the authors have a very brief summary of how people have looked at laughter all over the years. So the author wishes to state that, like, since most people have looked at very small examples, but no one has come up with enough data to make a comparative analysis of whether it's different across people or not. So people from as early as Darwin have been talking about laughter as vowel-like bursts, in a sense that it's pretty intuitive to think it this way, right? So we all know that laughter is associated with in the text like ha, he, ho, and something. So that's what people wanted to think, but and it turned out that when they started getting tools for pitch, the F0, which is the fundamental frequency analysis, it turned out that it wasn't so consistent. Like, people couldn't really say that this is how it evolved or this is the range of frequencies present. So that view had to be discontinued. And then there is a very important functional difference between whether there is a pitch component in the laughter or not, which makes it vocalized or not, respectively. For example, there was a very interesting example from the paper. I think most of you have read it. So it says in a first-time encounter between males and females, so yeah, the males are probably more likely to come back if the female exhibited more vocalized laughter. And it also said about vocalized laughter eliciting more positive emotions in the listener. So that could be a really interesting thing to see. I took some of the examples that they gave. There was this website, and I tried to show what they were explaining by about, call, and a segment. So about is an entire episode of laughter. So it includes the time from when you start to the time when you stop your laughter session. In this case, there are three units, as you can see in the about, and these units are called calls. They've also been referred to as syllables in some other places. So within a call, however, I don't know if the lines are visible, the red lines. So they sort of say within the call what are the smallest acoustical units. So there's something called phones in how we speak, and in this sense, if you look at the spectrogram, it's pretty pretty obvious that there's something very different between the first segment and this segment, these two segments. So this is what the author refers to as segments, and these are the three levels in which all the analysis have been carried out. And he also talks about segments being song-like or grunt-like and snort-like. He says song-like is predominantly voiced when you involve your vocal tract, and if you don't, then you look at whether you involve your nasal cavity or some other effects of your vocal tract, again, which differentiates between snort and grunt. So, to go through how the authors prepared the data. So, the way of data preparation was, in my opinion, pretty much not a real data, the induced data so it draws some parallels from the previous discussion about Schuler's paper, but I'd like to know if anyone has any contrasting views about it. Do you think the data collection was the best that could have been done, or there was scope for improvement? I think it wasn't diverse in the sense, I think there were 97 participants, and they were all American or Native American or Asian American. They were not from different culture. And secondly, all of them were all the same age group, all were students, and they were not 45 plus year of age. So I think the data set
They
was.
can still be students.
Yeah, they can be students, but the mean age was 19 or there. So I was thinking so that was my observation.
I agree with that the data set was kind of narrow, but I also think it's maybe a little bit easier in this case to collect real data from something in a lab like this, because if you're stimulating people to laugh, if they actually are laughing at something, then it's going to be real laughter. So it might still only be a certain category of it, but I think it might be less forced if you're actually producing somebody to laugh than some other types of data collection with having a conversation where it might be forced. I think this is a little bit more natural, even when being collected in a lab.
Yeah, I think to add on to that point, so the authors do mention that there were cases when there weren't enough laughters and they just simply removed the data. So it's not like the participants were sort of expected to laugh, and they didn't even know that the laughter was going to be collected. They just thought it was for an emotion study. So.
And also I think that this data was not collected in a highly interactive environment, as in it was a lab setting, and this laughter wasn't observed when there are multiple people interacting with each other and then observing their laughter.
Yeah. So I mean, this laughter was not, taken inside a conversation. So I mean,
Yes.
it was just, like just seeing a video, right? So I mean, I think that laughter is somewhat different than what we laugh in a conversation. I mean, it might be.
There was a comment?
That being said, that like some people watched a video alone and some watched with like another person, and I feel like I personally feel like that's kind of strange, because like if the other person's laughing, then you might feel like I should be laughing too. So I don't know how they like separated between those two groups.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in the discussion group that they didn't really like specify which of these laughters were from when there was a stranger accompanying them, and which were like recorded when they were alone.
So I have a question from paper, because so the target was that, so there were two people sitting beside each other, they didn't know each other or they didn't, but it was mentioned that they couldn't hear each other as well, and they couldn't see each other. And it was somehow strange for me, because it was mentioned that they had really good headphones, and so they couldn't probably hear each other or see each other laughing. So I somehow missed the part that what was the target of sitting next to each other.
I'm not sure whether they couldn't see each other. I think they were aware of another person. But that of course they couldn't hear.
That's the stuff that I'm not sure. Maybe the headphone was not that good. But
yes.
Sometimes isn't forced laughter also good? Like, isn't it good to collect forced laughter as well? Because sometimes that's natural as well. Sometimes people laugh because someone else is laughing. So it might be good to have that as well.
Yeah. There are also other laughters than humorous laughters or forced laughters or something. So.
Yeah.
It's so contagious, so someone laughing.
Yeah, it would have been better if they had marked and analyzed those sort of laughter separately, but that didn't happen here. So that covers how they basically got nearly 100 students, and they made them in different settings, and they were able to collect a large amount of laughters. So, and I wanted to add a small note about the terminology they use for statistical setting. I wasn't sure if everyone was like acquainted with what they meant by the F score of F statistic of so and so. Sorry. So just to very quickly go through it, ANOVA is basically analysis of variance or multiple analysis of variance. It needs an hypothesis which says few independent factors is going to influence your dependent factors. Like we're going to see if laugher sex was going to influence how many laughters were there or not. So that's what you're basically looking at. And in this notation, it's pretty common though. So the two numbers, 2 and 933, they indicate your degrees of freedom from your different independent factors. So, and the score, the absolute
So what is
score,
2 in this case?
I think this is about the number of bout types voiced.
Yeah, so what is this, the result from exactly?
I'm not really sure.
Okay.
I just took out from one of the many examples. Okay. Yeah. I think the most important thing to take away from expression like this whenever you see in the future is that what's the p-value. So that says with your confidence that this result could be wrong. So this clearly says that there's less than 0.1% probability that this significance is going to be wrong, so which is like pretty confident. And yeah.
So it's very confident that this difference is actually there.
Yes, yes. And your independent factors do influence your dependent factors. So when I first saw it, I was pretty lost. Like, what's it?
And we're gonna talk a little bit about this as well. Yeah. And I like how this was reported. So when you're reporting your data, that would be very nice to see something like that. And then you could add effect size to that too. That would be fantastic. We're going to talk about that too. And so yeah, p-values can be deceiving. One caveat here, for example, like if you have a lot of data, you can find a significant result even on a very tiny effect. So that's why we also want to see effect sizes. And so there's a lot of influence there. So we're going to talk about this a lot. I think it's a big part of the human communication behavior analysis. And so that's why, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point.
To some of the most striking points which I felt from the observation was, firstly, there was no real possible duration you could assign to either bouts or calls. They were just so different. There was a huge variance in for how long they laughed, irrespective of whether they were males or females. And finally, it says that females did tend to provide more voice bouts and calls. I don't know if it was in presence of other people or that wasn't reported. But yeah, so I was wondering if that is possibly because they have a smaller vocal tract length. It's a well-known fact that females have a higher pitch due to that. So is it much easier to produce voiced laughs for them? I don't know. So, and finally it says.
What do people think about that?
Oh,
that's the females.
Yeah, mine. But that laughter is very loud. Yes. Sorry. No, so this in my culture, we usually really produce voiced laugh much more than unvoiced laugh. Because unvoiced laugh for us sound being sarcastic or something.
Right.
Yeah, it's not very polite. I don't know.
I was thinking that laughter in females is a lot more connected to signaling. And there's a lot more palato because it's part of mating ritual. A lot more than in males.
So if you like a guy.
If you're flirting,
yeah, if you like
you
a
will
guy,
laugh,
and
you will laugh more pronounced.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Or you'll say, no, I don't like this guy. I'm not.
I also would like to mention that we should probably stay caution about these facts. We had 97 people.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a representative sample of populations or even so it's also a very narrow sample. We don't really know everything about the way it was recorded. What was the percentage of female laughters alone versus in social context and so on. So I think it's maybe interesting, but I would always kind of have caution around blanket statements. Yeah. So just my 2 cents, I guess.
Take it with a grain of salt. Don't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
So to continue, they did observe that laugh effects do not influence so many other factors for what's the mean number of laughter or how much they laughed and so on. And finally, some interesting graphs that I felt was so I showed up an example of a 3-call bout with the waveform earlier. So they observed that whenever the bout is going to be 5 or less, there's a particular way in which the laughter progresses, in the sense that your call length keeps decreasing on an average, but when you have a much larger bout session, it's sort of decreases and then just the last one just comes up. So you laugh for more in the last time you laugh. And
so why could this be?
Because I think it's one exhalation and last while you give your entire breath away, so it's longer.
Yeah, I think it has to do with something with the lungs and the capacity of lungs and speech production. So yeah, I think we have to wrap up.
Okay, so I'm gonna just
very quickly.
Yeah. So there are 2 other experiments in the paper, one on the formula-related outcomes that have the mean values and standard deviations for the different production modes for females and males. So the interesting thing in this experiment was that they plotted the F1 and F2 on a standard vowel space representation that I didn't know that there was a vowel space for that. And they showed that most of the acoustic laughter is relies on the central unarticulated sound. The last experiment was the classification of acoustic features for the genders and individual identities. So let's go to the discussion real quick. So they say that there is an acoustic variability, and this variability is associated with underlying vocal production mode. And as I said, it includes the central unarticulated sounds, and there are some cues for classification based on the sex and individual identity. So laughter is highly varied. It has temporal variability, source variability, and variability in production mode. There are some interesting observations here that the average sound production in laughter is higher than the conversational speech, which I think we intuitively know. And the other thing was that the females produce more song-like louds, males produce more grunt-like laughs. And it's driven by different factors, or like individual style differences, linkage between laughter arousal and the social context. Laughter is not articulated, as we saw in the F1, F2 plots. And the interesting thing here was that they saw a few ha sound and no ho or he sound, where the stereotype of the laughter, I think. They show that there are indexial cueing in laughter. And one thing here that I noticed is that they said that overall classification is 72%, as it's high, but the baseline is 50%, right? But for males, it's like near 40%. They say it's not as high, but the baseline here is 5% because they have like 20 males. So I think it's higher in individuals than in genders.
I think in one case you were trying to classify between males and females, and in the other case you were trying to classify between different types of bouts, if I'm not sure. So that's why the baseline was so low.
I think that's really just based on the genders, like two pathways. Yeah, that was something that was interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So like they're already waiting inside.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
But this was the part I liked the most.
Oh, maybe next time.